Greetings, Warlords. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the Skirmish Miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. I'm your host, Rodge, joined once again by John, a.k.a. the Silver Fox returns. How's it going, John?
It's going well, Joe. How are you doing?
It's good. Yeah, it has been a while.
Yeah.
I think the last time we recorded is probably the last time I seen you. That was just after Adepticon. And at that time, we chatted a little bit, and you agreed to come back and talk about the Saxons with us at some point. And, you know, I never let an offer get away from me. I'll follow up 1,000 times and got you on here. So, yeah, you're a long-time friend of the show. You've probably... Well, Monty's done quite a few videos at this point, so you're not quite at the Monty levels, but you're probably number 2 or 3 on the all-time list there of Saga Thursday guests. So
wow.
Thanks for coming out. Yeah.
I feel like solid number 4, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, just let your wife know, or, you know, however you need to, you know, really maximize that.
She'll be thrilled to know it.
Awesome. So... yeah, we are going to be chatting about the Age of Invasion Saxons today. So this will be a lot of fun. I've played the Saxon board quite a few different times. One of my favorites. It sounds like you have fun with them as well. And I think, I don't know, let's just dive into these bad boys. And I love their equipment options here. I don't know if you
so
have
many choices.
The book in front of you, but maybe from memory you'll be able to remind us what they have.
They have nothing special.
Yeah, there are no equipment options. Period.
Well, for all of them except for the levy.
That's true. You can take bows or slings. Mechanically the same.
Right on.
But so yeah, at this point, all you have are, you know, your allocations between levy, warriors, Hearthguard, and warlord. So, what do you kind of like in here for the split for your purposes?
I like building all warriors with this faction.
Okay, yeah, I could definitely see that. So. What I've taken in the past have been a unit of levies, a unit of Hearthguard, and then the rest warriors. If we're be able to use a merc unit, I think the personal champion is really good with these guys. So sometimes I'll swap out the warriors for that personal champ. But in all my games, all the warriors do all the damage and the heavy lifting. So at the end of the game, the Hearthguard and levies are still there, and they just kind of have watched everything unfold. So I think definitely taking more warriors is a fine way to go. The levies, you know, having a range unit, there isn't almost anything that combos with them on the board.
Yeah.
But just having a shooting unit can really throw some people off their game. And then a couple of the abilities require higher armor. And so the Hearthguard in a pinch can be the unit that you go to in those situations. But we'll talk about that as we get to it. But definitely, yeah, just a buckload of warriors, I think, is a good way to go with these guys. And at this point, I usually say, you know, well, at the top, it's looking like all the usual stuff. But we got to take a pause here because there is a ability called Führer in lieu of the combat bonus. And Führer is a melee ability. Remove X fatigues from your unit. Your opponent gains 3 attack dice for each fatigue, thus discarded 1 if you use a rare. So if you remove 1 fatigue from your unit, you give your opponent 3 attack dice. If you remove 3 fatigues from your unit, you give your opponent 9 attack dice. So that would be 1 and 3 in those examples if you use a rare. And, you know, so there's a lot you can do with this. And so I will just say we have to keep in mind, you know, the normal Saga rules are in effect as far as additional dice. So if your opponent is generating 2 attack dice at the start of step 3 and you give them 9 attack dice, we can see, they can only take those extra 2 with them. They can go from 2 to 4 during that phase. So there's some strategy right there, I think, off the top. But what are... do you use this ability a lot? I can think of... There's lots of situations where it can be used. But do you end up using it a lot?
I find that I don't. And I mean, the comment I would make about the board as a whole is that most of the abilities on here, or most of them, they're good. There's nothing it's not like a board where there's stuff that's just, this is always spectacular and this is always junk, so I never use. Some of it's like, all of it has times where it's good, and I just feel like I never have enough Saga dice for all the to do all the things.
So that is my kind of issue with this fear ability. This is more kind of like icing on the cake, but there are certain times where it could come in handy. But there's just, it's just tough because the other abilities are good enough that you'll put your dice there unless you have some weird specific thing in mind. But I guess probably the most common thing I'll do is if I roll a boatload of rares, at some point in the turn, I think loading up a rare here, if there's no urgent need for it, is great. Because then you can just get really, you can just get wild and crazy with your warlord or using the personal champion. Anything with resilience. You could even stack 2 or 3 rares up here and just go crazy with your warlord. So just keeping the warlord alive is awesome. I love playing an aggressive warlord. You can kind of try to shed fatigue with it. So you've got your pack of Hearthguard or whatever.
Yeah.
The last thing they do is charge into one levy of the enemy. They finish them off, and you just pull all the fatigues off your Hearthguard or something, get ready for the next turn. So you can kind of picture, there's like a clearing strategy. With this ability, you can really go suicidal on a double or triple activation, and basically you're going to lose your unit, but you peel off your fatigues first thing, so your attack dice are all pure. They're not going to just spend your fatigue to increase their armor to 6, and your crazy attack run will just peter out based off that. So if you don't care if your unit lives and you really need to hammer something, you can use the Fear ability. So I think that's kind of the second most common thing I'll do is, if I have to double activate into levies or something, I'll peel that one off with Fear. So I'm going to hit them on 2s or something like that instead of the 3s or the 4s. So that's another thing you can do there. I will say, do not try to combo this with Death is Nothing to get more attacks on your enemy, because this is actually kind of a defensive play almost, because if you pull your fatigues, they're just going to be hitting you on your 4s or 5s or whatever, and that's like half the attacks are going to miss anyway. So it actually, you would kind of just rather spend the fatigues to take you down and not spend a dice trying to do like a weird combo. I don't know. That's never worked when I've tried to use it. So it is kind of a defensive play too, I think. It's surprising how giving those extra attacks often, they don't do that much more damage at the end. I don't know, if they just get unlucky or whatever, and I'm remembering those instances. But maintaining your armor 4 or 5 is pretty good, if you can. But it's like you said, that just getting the dice up here always is a little tricky, because with, we're going to look at the board, but with Saxons, it's just go, go, it seems like, and, do as much damage, and that's your defense is killing the other guy.
Yeah, I think this ability is most efficient with that helmet, because that one die, you get a big, I envision it a lot of times with one of your main combat units. 'Cause like I'm saying, in running big units of warriors, I'm a lot of times I got a couple 12 packs of warriors, and you know, they get fatigued out for whatever reason, but man, it's efficient to clean them up and have them ready for that fight or the next fight with that helmet, and you're not trading away a lot.
Yeah, with the helmet, it's like, yeah, you're not like losing anything, you know, basically, definitely use it. Yeah, I like queuing up that helmet because it'll always make sense to burn it, where if you put an axe or a horse here, it's sitting there and, you know, you're like, oh gosh, am I going to screw myself by trying to do a weird thing here, give them some attack dice. But yeah, the helmet works great. Now, downside, no combat bonus is no shooting reaction defense dice.
Yeah.
Is kind of one thing we'll be missing here, perhaps. But
we got something lower on the board for that, though.
Yeah, we got it. We got it covered. And yeah, so this ability went back to first edition Saxons, and I was really surprised that it got carried forward. You know, because it was created before Resilience, so I thought there's no way they're gonna carry it forward the way that Warlords work now. But when I got the book, that was the first thing I went and looked at, and then I just giggled. I just giggled when I saw it, John. I was so happy.
Yeah, it's really strong on your Warlord. Absolutely. It's nice.
Okay, let's pop down to that first ability here, Profanation. It's a melee, uses common or uncommon. If the enemy unit loses the melee or is completely destroyed, one enemy unit of your choice within short of your unit takes a fatigue. And so this, just to clarify, this could be the unit that you just beat up. So you could get 2 on one of them. So, you know, those dice, John, they're in high demand. Do they make it to Profanation?
Yeah, some of the time. This typically is a setup ability for what usually is like the main featured combat. You know, you pick on the unit that's next to the one that you really want to beat up, so you can throw that fatigue on that one, and then I think it's worth a common, or you know, you got a spare or uncommon. It's solid, especially picking on you know, you get those situations where you're trying to isolate that enemy warlord. You need a few fatigues just to make sure that the hits get through, and you kill that unit next to them so that they get that fatigue bomb, and then plus this one, and you're like, all right, now we're looking good against the warlord.
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes those little fatigue bomb units just absolutely you know, a target for the Saxons. So yeah, up front, it's a little harder to use it. You know, you got to win the melee. So if you're using that warlord again, or a personal champion, it's a lot easier to get this one off because you just kill one guy, you're gonna win the combat. So I always feel like, oh, what if I get unlucky? It's not going to do anything. But when you get down to those little fatigue bomb 1 or 2 packs, using this, I think, really makes a lot of sense. And I'm trying to use this ability more because, you know, getting a fatigue, you know, it's like a delayed gratification kind of thing. You can play the abilities that take effect now, or you can do this one, which will set you up down the road. And yeah, I think it's good because with the Saxons, you're going to tend to overactivate if you can. And so this Profanation makes sure that the enemy kind of keeps up with you as far as fatigues. So, you know, you're getting fatigued by multiple activations, but they're just right there with you. So it makes those combats even again. All right. Let's go down to Implacable. 2 of the choppy little axes here, 2 commons. Melee, gain 2 attack dice, gain half as many extra attack dice as there are figures in the enemy unit. So if you're going up against that 12 pack of Levy, you're going 2 plus 6 is 8 attack dice, which I think is well worth. 2 little measly dice. If you're going up against a warlord or something, you go, the presence counts as 2, so you'd get 4 from this. So a little questionable, but
that's starting to sound expensive.
Yeah, yeah. But there's one other ability that gains. Well, no, I guess there's 2 more. So I will use it. I think if they have 8 man, you got that nice 6 attack dice. That's kind of worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the threshold for you?
Definitely 8-man units. A lot of times when I'm assembling my board and I'm putting my dice down and I've got one axe on this one and I'm trying to figure out where I can get that second axe from, because a lot of times I just don't have another axe by the time you're done with some of the other abilities that I favor a little more. But it's a good situational ability when you see that fight coming against the levy and you're just like, I just want to mop these guys, just make sure they really are dead.
Absolutely. So to me, this is their shooting defense right here, because this is the ability that you use when you go in to wipe out their levy shooters. And so you can definitely with this board double activate, even triple if you need to. Mm-hmm. You got 8 warriors, maybe bigger than that. Pop this, you go to 16 attacks. You're really going to be hurting that levy shooter unit. And you can even combo this with a few other things and really push. We're getting to Viking level potential attack pools here. If you were to burn everything on that unit. But this is a great ability. I'll probably use it in most games. And I think, going up against 7-8 guys for 6 attack dice, well worth it. Gets a little tougher when you're looking at 3 or 4 attack dice, probably not worth it.
Yeah.
All right. Coming down to Ferocious. This is an Orders ability, quite unique. Uses a common or uncommon. Choose a unit of non-mercenary Hearthguard or warriors. Until the end of the turn, they get 3 bonus attack dice during each melee, but lose 1 defense dice when rolling to cancel hits received. So if the enemy hits you twice, you roll 1 defense dice, so you're going to automatically, take a hit. Mm-hmm. Now, John, this ability actually potentially needs a fact, because this wording implies you can put it on an enemy unit as well if you choose to. But the old guy wording in the book says you have to choose one of your units
right
for it. So have you used it on an is this the first time you're hearing that, or have you tried to use it on?
No, I've never tried to use it on. I guess I'm not thinking in those terms.
Yeah, I was never thinking too, but Bob from Minnesota there, we were playing Saxons and he pointed that out, and he's correct. The way this is worded, and just, I don't know, I kind of think the intent might be that you could use either or, because just the way the board works, that's kind of, using it on your unit or the enemy unit, is both of those are still kind of within the shtick of the board and kind of how things work. So,
I don't know. I think my Saxons are more ferocious than my opponents all the time.
Well, that's true. Well, sometimes they get riled up.
Yeah.
So let's talk about using it on your own units first. Mm-hmm. And so, do you like this ability? Do you think it's worth it, or?
I do. So this one, my opinion is that I wouldn't use it on Hearthguard. I don't know. It just
there's no way that I would use it on Hearthguard. Yeah.
But I will typically, if I've assessed what I'm gonna try to have happen that turn for my attacks, particularly if I feel like I've got a unit that's gonna make more than 1 charge and have more than 1 melee.
Yes,
I think it's an easy one for sure. And sometimes the way I will run Saxons is I most of the time, in fact, it's couple bigger units, and then a number of smaller units.
The little suicide boys. Right?
Suicide boys. And this one, if you can line up the fight with the suicide unit with ferocious, and then get a death is nothing thrown in there, I mean, you can do some hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, I won't hesitate to use this on a unit of warriors for sure. I think it's great for a number of reasons. So yeah, everything being even, I'll just use it just to get more attack dice and whatever. I'll take a little extra damage. Who cares? But it's great for trying to max out the ability we just looked at, Implacable. So if you have a unit of 5 warriors, for example, going up against a 12-pack of Levy, normally they'd be capped out at 5 to 10 attacks. But the way it works, they go in with 5. They get 3 bonus at the start. So at the start of step 3, they're at 8, and then you can go up to 16 with Implacable. So you've got 5 warriors generating 16 attack, and like you said, there's death is nothing, which we'll get to, which can generate further mayhem and mischief. So I think it's great. And you can even with this ability, there's one more you could think about comboing it with. You have 12 warriors with 3 for this, 15 Implacable plus 8 is 23, I think. And then we can add 2 or 4 more before we get to the end. So just a boatload of attack dice. Okay, so if we're going to think about the flip side, using this on an enemy unit, I'm not sure that I would, but in this case, John, would you use it on a unit of Hearthguard for the enemy? Would that be all right for you?
I think in that case it would be all right. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that case, I think it's a flip flop, so there's an ability later on that is kind of similar to this. The enemy rolls 2 less defense dice. So with this one, you could potentially combo, so they're rolling 3 less, or you could see, if they're down to the last Hearthguard or something, and I just make sure I want to kill this guy. I don't care that he has a few extra attacks. I'll pop this on him. So there's some use there. The Age of Invasion's FAQ is, if this recording still hasn't come out, this is the only book without a FAQ so far. So what we're talking about there could be FAQ'd away, but as written, I think it's clear it would affect both. But so just keep that in mind, John. A little extra tool in the arsenal.
Yeah, I think I'm not disagreeing with you. I think what it does is slows your game way down, because your opponent's got to process this, alternate reality that we're presenting, and then if you're in a tournament, I gotta wait for the TO to come over to talk.
Okay, yeah, talk to your TO ahead of time. Get a signed, written affidavit.
That's right.
Approval.
Drop the scroll. Okay, yep. TO says it's legit.
It's good to go, but yeah. All right. Well, let's pop down to Jeers. Shooting reaction using that horsey there. After the shooting attack is resolved, the enemy takes fatigues equal to half the casualties suffered by your unit. So this is as good as it gets as far as defense. It's not really defense. It's more like retaliation for killing your own guys. So I think, obviously, if they have one big shooting attack, a big unit of crossbows or something is coming, this is worthwhile. What if you're up against, like maybe Welsh, Huns, or Mongols, where it's just, the weight of small shooting attacks? Would you still load this up, or at that point where you're like, whatever?
If they're gonna be picking you off by 1s and 2s, it's not worth it. It's definitely the armies that can load up the big attack, and then you park it there and just kind of like a dare. Like, are you going to use all your shooting abilities? on this shot and roll good.
That's true. Yeah. So a couple
so
boards.
often I load this one up and then they roll like garbage, and I'm like, well, I guess I still came out alive. But
well, that's what I was going to say. It actually is a shooting defense because they're almost guaranteed to whiff every shot, and you'll make every save if you pop this ability. So if you think of it in that terms, it is a defensive one. So yeah, like you said, if they're plinking away at you, I guess I would almost, if you have an extra dice or something, I'd put it into Fuhrer probably before this in those situations. But, if you're in turn 1 or 2 or something and you're just slogging across, maybe I'd put it in there in those situations. But there are quite a few factions, though, that are really just the one hit. Normans, the Irish will have a big hit. Yeah. Most of the Age of Crusades have a crossbow unit. So in a fair number of situations, I think it's pretty handy. But, if they don't have any shooting, it just makes your life a little easier when you're putting the dice down.
Yep.
So let's go over to shield and Sayax is how I'm going to say that. Uses a common and an uncommon melee. Your opponent must reroll all results of 6 on their attack and defense dice. John, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this ability.
I think it's a little expensive. I never have dice for this ability.
Yes. So this is really kind of a one die ability in my opinion. So every time I've tried to use it, I've tracked, the results of the comp. How many less hits did I take and how many more hits that I do, or casualties that I cause because of it. And so the average impact is one. So I do one more casualty or take one less hit. Okay. So you can see an ability that gives you like 2 attack dice is just as powerful as this 2 dice ability. So I've stopped trying to use this and just concentrate. Because there was a time, you can see the combos with the Warlord or the Hearthguard. I'll get my armor to 6, and then I'll be invincible, and I can do extra damage. But it just doesn't work out. So save your dice, put it on Profanation instead, and then do something else with the other die. In my opinion,
activate for more charges.
Yeah, just get them. Just attack again.
Get ferocious.
Go ferocious. Yeah, I would do almost anything first before popping shield and Sayax. So, better in theory than how it plays out. But we're going to move over to a Juggernaut, a beautiful, delicious ability. You can use any die you want. If your unit's armor is higher than the enemy units... Hold on.
Joe, sorry to interrupt you. Did you say Juggernaut?
Juggernaut? Or what did I say?
I thought you said Juggernaut.
Maybe.
Are we talking about insignificant?
Insignificant, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what I was thinking. I'm looking at the thing right now. So
all right.
Maybe I was thinking about what's happening to my units after I pop this ability.
Okay.
If your armor is higher, so there's a condition there. And I think that's fair because otherwise you gain 2 attack dice, 4 for a rare, and you remove a fatigue from your unit at the end of this melee.
Oh, hot.
So good. So tasty. So, thoughts here, John? Didn't have much about Shield and Sayax, but what are you thinking about this one?
Oh, this one I love. And because I'm running warrior builds, this one's a little trickier to pull off. You gotta have, know that you're going to lower their armor if you're fighting other warriors, right? And then you have to have more fatigue. They have to have more fatigue than you have, so you don't play the up-down.
If you're going
in
even, yep.
So this one combos nicely with Profanation.
Absolutely. So Profanation, you go into the combat first, get the extra fatigue on another unit. So,
Yeah.
you know, you can go in fresh with a separate unit here. So, yeah, this it's great. You know, at first I would try to save it for my warlord, but yeah, just getting the fatigue off your warrior blocks and stuff is just it's good on any unit. The downside is that extra armor. So this is the reason I kind of have an extra Hearthguard unit hanging around, because sometimes, you know, against certain armies and the way that they're positioned, you know, if you just have warriors, it's like impossible to pop this ability, and then I think War Cry is the next one down that has the same restriction. Yeah. So at that point, you're like, okay, well, you know, whatever. The Hearthguard do just as much damage as the warriors, and they can pop these abilities, which is what I need right now. And so this is a reason to consider a Hearthguard unit or two. But it's also a reason to not consider Hearthguard, because with Führer and this ability, it's very easy to keep the Warlord alive, I think, compared to other factions.
Yeah, fair.
So do you use the rare on this one?
If I've got a spare rare, I mean, it's 4 attack dice and no fatigue at the end. Oh, that's tasty.
Yeah, you're right. It's tasty. So using that on the personal champion, going from 6 to 10 attacks, going from 8 to 12 on a warlord, 8 to 12 on a standard pack of warriors or Hearthguard is pretty good, I guess. Yeah, this is probably where the third rare goes. So first one will always go to the Storm Breaks, which we'll get to. Next one will probably go to Führer just to queue it up. But if I don't want to queue it up, or there's already a die sitting there, then definitely insignificant. I think just a couple extra attacks is worth it. And this is how you can get up to whatever 25 attacks with between insignificant, implacable, and ferocious. And I think I have done that going up against, you know, trying to buzzsaw some levy, just try to get them all in one go.
Yeah. Can I ask you though?
Yeah.
You know, about the statistics of the dice. I've got a lot of war bands. I own all the different dice makes, all the different symbol dice, and you know, all of them are original. Whoever manufactures, is it Gripping Beast or making them?
There's
Studio Tomahawk. I don't know whoever makes them.
Yeah, the company that makes them approached me one time to give me some free dice because they make the Saga dice. It's somewhere in Europe.
Okay.
And they're like, oh, great, send me some Saga dice. And they're like, well, we can't send you those ones. And I'm like, okay, I'll get back to you. You know, I don't need dice.
So I feel like of my sets, most of them roll pretty average on the, you know, statistics of which side, but these darn green ones, it is brutal sometimes getting a helmet to come out of them.
Oh, so you're lacking the helmets on those.
They don't give you the helmets, and it's I mean, and mine are original run, you know, ones from version 1 original old dice. So I don't know.
Yeah, first edition Saga, when it was hard to get a rare back then. Yeah, in those days.
It's like you talk about where you stack your rares. It's like sometimes I don't see a rare until like the 4th turn. Okay. So
I use the Rodge custom one. So and you know I've always said my problem with the original dice is the rare is only on one side. So, you know, I've rectified that with my die. Usually 2 or 3 helmets per die is how I like to do. So I really don't have a problem, John.
Okay. I thought it was just me. I see how you've worked around. That's excellent. I'm gonna need to know what, you know, I just want to play the same faction as you, so I can borrow your dice in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that can be, I mean, yeah, if you've been watching the battle reports, and anytime I'm using these dice, I mean, it basically corroborates that somehow. But great ability.
Yeah.
Moving down to Vivacity. Orders reaction, using that on common horse. Activate up to 2 units, more than S away from any enemy unit for a move. So I love this one. I always put a horse here. John, are you the same?
I do early game. My strategy with this ability is to use it to move my units closer to the battle line. The ones that are lagging behind, get them up there.
Yeah, this is perfect. So you can, multi activations, for going after objectives and stuff like that. You can kind of grab it on your turn and then scooch the following turn. If the packet allows it, some of them will stop reactions. But yeah, just using, I move in my turn. Your turn. I'm just going to move closer. Like, well, I'm coming for you.
Here we come. We're ferocious.
I will mess myself up from time to time with that more than SOA restriction. So you can't hit a unit and then just run off in your turn with the ability. It's not a hit and run. So I mean, if you eliminate the unit completely and there's nobody else standing by, you can scooch off and retreat if you were so inclined.
Too far away to murder him next turn then if you've done that.
Yeah, so I actually prefer to generally stick around and just try to weather the storm. And, with Ferocious, Furor, different ability, just having those little warrior units stick around, you can really do some damage with those little units. So this one is good for the levies if you do take them, some shooters. So you can move up, shoot on your turn, for example, and then, back off if you really needed to be further away for some reason. But yeah, I love this one. Great ability. All right. Moving down to War Cry. This is a common, uncommon. If your unit's armor is higher than the enemy unit's, the unit reduces the number of defense dice it rolls to cancel hits taken by 2. So, if they don't have any defense dice at all, that's awesome because they're going to take at least 2 damage. If they do have 2 defense dice, it kind of just negates those, which is decent, but doesn't quite make me as happy as when they have no defense dice. Now, is this worth it, John? Do you use this one? I'd be curious about the math behind it, how much damage you do. I don't know. It's kind of like a guarantee that you're going to kill some stuff.
It is. I don't use this one as frequently. It's definitely a tier 2 ability. If you've got the combat where you're going to play the armor game and win, queue up insignificant, queue up war cry. I mean, if you got a spare common or uncommon, yeah, just throw it in there. It's just more guarantees that, especially if you are fighting, a bigger unit of 8. You know how it goes when you're there. Oh yeah, you beat them bad, but they rolled decent on their defense dice, and you're left with 1. It's always 1 or 2, and you're like, So it's just this helps mop them up for sure.
Yeah, it helps. I'd be curious, statistically, what this is doing for you. I kind of think it's like Shield and Sayax, where it's just going to give you 1 more pip, in the right direction at the end. But yeah, I still use it frequently. There's a lot of efficiency on the board, so there usually is a die floating out there that could go towards it. Definitely better than Shield and Sayax, in my opinion. So trying to use it, it would be beautiful for taking out that exhausted warlord, but you have to get your armor higher than him, which is the difficult part. Like I said, with Ferocious and flipping it onto an enemy Hearthguard, if they're down to just like that one last guy, sometimes those last guys can be quite impervious to any number of attacks launched against them. So sometimes I'll use that just to ensure, there's no way. And then the other thing is units that can close ranks. So if they see that you just have this queued up, they know their close ranking power will be, significant, accordingly diminished.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they'll just stick it out. So I think that could be a win as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, just go for it. I would definitely use it on levies against enemy levies because I don't know if it seems like enemy levy units make about 80% of their armor saves. So it's like you're taking out two save dice for sure, at least. And so this is another one. We should look at the math. So if you do Implacable, Ferocious, Insignificant, and War Cry, I wonder statistically if you should pop a 12-man levy or not. Probably not on 3s, but maybe if you're hitting them on 2s. Because that's, that should be like 20 hits. They're going to be rolling 2 less saves, so 18 saves against 20, 18, a third of that is 12.
Not in hard terrain.
Yeah, I don't know. I might have to calculate that. But have you ever just used everything like that against the levy?
No.
I just hate them. I just hate them, John. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, I find most of the time with Warcry, it's getting used against enemy warriors.
Yep. Definitely not bad, but
it's just too hard to get, especially with my warriors against their Hearthguard, getting their armor down 2 pips and me, still having a higher armor. Gosh, I mean, there's a lot of stuff has already happened in the game that they're in that situation. And if that's the case, if they're like, 3 fatigues and they're exhausted, well, I don't know, Warcry.
Yeah, you were probably going to kill them anyways,
yeah.
Potentially. Yeah, so that's interesting. So I think with Insignificant, you make the effort to try to make sure you get that off and make it happen, and you could probably do that once per turn. So you're either going to use Warcry on that same melee, but it can be tricky. You're not going to put a lot of effort into making a second matchup where your armor comes out higher just so you can use Warcry. Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, let's pop down to Death is nothing. It's just fun to say.
Yeah.
Death is nothing. Melee rare unit other than levies. If the attack dice are rolled, inflict on the enemy unit a number of automatic hits equal to a third of the number of hits taken by your unit. So if they hit you once, you'll put an auto hit on them. I think with the way the math works, if they hit you 10 times, so 10 or more, then you get the 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever I pop this, which isn't frequently, they get 3, 6, or 9 hits on me. Generally is how it works. They don't get 4, 7, or 10 usually to round up. But so how often are you popping this bad boy?
Very much dependent on what's facing across the board. I find just it makes me giggle if it's an 8-pack or Earthguard, because I just point a 5-pack of warriors right at it and just send them in.
Yeah, so especially like mounted Hearthguard or heavy weapon Hearthguard. Ooh, oh my gosh, Anglo-Danes, beware! You're going to be bouncing some stuff off.
It's fun to watch them. Like, wait a minute, what's going to happen? And then they're like, you go in exhausted, and they're like, oh, or go in with fatigue, and they're like, oh, it's weird. I don't want to use your fatigue and stuff. I'm like, nah, use it. Yeah,
exactly. Yes, this one is situational, and even when it works, it's just getting a few extra hits. Typically, it is nice if you can plow into some big units. This one, is probably the second or third rare. Definitely not the first, and probably not the second, to be honest. Probably the third one down.
or fourth, depending on the need to pull Führer out.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, if you have a ton of rares, sure, put it on there. You do some extra damage. What it is nice for is going after the Warlord on the attack run. So the first one, you go in with your unit, you know, you're going to exhaust the Warlord, and then you go in a second time and pop Death is Nothing. And hopefully, you know, between your attacks and their couple attacks, those just couple auto hits are enough to kind of finish them off.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, not quite as tasty as the Mutatawea version of bouncing auto hits, which is unlimited auto hits, by the way.
Yeah.
Now, would you rather see that one fact down to max 4 like this, John, or would you rather see the max 4 removed from Death is Nothing?
Honestly, I don't think it matters to the Saxons. I mean, probably if given those choices, I'm going to say the other one, fact down to max 4, because I've only ever seen them do 3 hits back. Even, you know, just
yeah. So going for 3 for ones here. Yeah, it's going to be a corner case where it would ever exceed 4. Yeah, that would have to be 13 hits. Against you're basically going up against Vikings, or maybe another Saxon army where it'd come into play. Where I agree that the Mutatawea one is kind of bananas, with no limitation actually. So, good answer, John. Good answer.
Thanks.
All right, we're going to the Storm Breaks, common or rare activation. Activate 2 units within medium of an enemy unit for a charge. If you use that rare, John, these activations generate no fatigue. Tell me about it. Tell me, buddy. What can you do with this?
So what you do is you roll your Saga dice out in your orders phase, and you identify the uncommon, you put it here first. Okay, then you build your board from there.
Well, you see if you have a helmet first.
That's true.
Sounds like you don't typically have one.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about it. So
but
yeah, I think with a helmet it's even better, obviously, because of the no fatigue, and particularly depending on where the battle is at. If you're still meeting the point of engagement, and it's going to be that second activation, that second charge, so you obviously you move up your 2 units and then pop this, and they both go in with no fatigue. That's hot. So I think that's a good use of that helmet.
Yeah, it's good. This is the first place where the helmet goes. So when you're thinking about like just efficiency and stuff, it's like 2 activations for 1 Saga die is pretty good. But now you're sloughing off 2 fatigues, preventing them, so that's kind of saving you 2 rest activations late, so it's kind of like a 4 for 1 as far as efficiency goes.
Yeah.
So, so good, so tasty. You can use it to just activate 1 unit with the new rule, the latest rule book, because you can do 2, but you can do less. Sometimes what this is good for is activating units to charge that have already charged that turn. So obviously towards the start of the game, this is perfect for moving up, then charging. But like you said, once you're engaged, you can charge something, maybe through Führer or insignificant. You haven't taken any fatigues, or you've used profanation to put extra fatigue on the opponent. And so now you charge them again, and you might have, after the second combat, you have no fatigues with insignificant Storm Breaks, and they have 2 fatigues from profanation in the first melee. And so maybe the first melee between the 2 units is just kind of a slap fight. And then all of a sudden you go in and the second time, and it's like you drop on their armor by 2, pop an implacable or something like that. So Yeah, I have done that. So what I've done with my Warlord, this happened game 3 at Adepticon. So Josh had some exhausted 12-pack of archers. So I charged my Warlord in, used his fatigues to make them impossible to hit. I used insignificant to make it so I wouldn't take a fatigue at the end. And so I killed 4 or 5 of them. And then I just used storm breaks and charged my Warlord in again. And then just killed the rest of them. So you can have a lot.
You showed those, Levy.
Yeah.
I see how you showed them.
Yeah, you can have a lot of fun here.
Yep.
With multiple charges. So you could see comboing this with the ferocious unit that has the 3 extra attack. Spend a dice, charge it once, charge it again with storm breaks. And this is great too for when you get down to those little junk units. I think Saxons play better than anybody with their little depleted units of warriors, because you could soup them up with ferocious to turn them from like a 3 to a 6-pack. Implacable could end up with 10 or 12 dice on a 3-man unit somehow. But it's also good if you don't want to do that. You can still just charge this 1 or 3-man unit, because you might be, well, I only got 1 real charge for the turn, but I've got this second free charge. I might as well charge in this 1 extra little guy over here to put the fatigue on the other guy, where I think other factions you would do that, but you just don't have the dice to kind of sling in these little extra units, because you have so few dice. You got to prioritize, where this one is great for, even if you just have 1 charge of the turn, you got a little junk charge you can do that other factions can't. So overall I think this board is, it's really fun to play. I don't know. What do you think?
I like it. Yeah, it's fun to have lots of good choices. I was just looking at it going, okay, so I mean, the challenge to you is you've loaded up your abilities here. So you got 1 die on profanation, 2 additional dies on implacable. You've used a die on ferocious. So there's 4 dice already committed to abilities, a 5th dice on insignificant. All right, so there's 5 dice. So you've got 3 more to make charges and rests or whatever else you feel like you got to do. So one of them is going to be storm breaks to give you 2 charges. So that's the challenge of all these cool abilities, but do I have enough dice still after some combats occur and you lose a saga die or 2, and then you're like, oh, that's sort of, I like the management of trying to decide, all right, here's what I rolled, where do I put it to make it work?
So
I think in general,
I like it. It pushes you towards multiple charges, which is it is like a unique theme as far as saga boards go, because there's offensive boards, attack boards, but this is kind of like a charging board, multiple charges with the same unit type of encouragement, which is unusual. I like playing it. I think it's easier than certain boards putting your dice down, because Jeers, Shield, and Seax probably aren't going to come into play. Death is Nothing probably isn't going to come into play.
Yeah, after a while, Vivacity's out after a little bit.
So it's kind of like, am I going to use Implacable or not this turn? For me, kind of seems to be the big decision. But then, if it's early in the game, they got big units. It's like, well, I'm going to use it, So it's not much of a decision there. So I think this board plays the way that people think the Vikings play.
That's fair.
Or phrase another, how the Vikings should play, maybe. So I think, what the Vikings lack is activations and efficiency and stuff, and getting in those charges. Versus Saxons, they got everything. It's just, there's kind of hidden efficiency here. When you look at it, it doesn't seem particularly strong, and looks like it has some very distinct weaknesses. So no defense dice, no shooting defense, a couple abilities, you're trying to get yourself killed. But Yeah, it really is the best defense is a good offense, and just going after them. Even just doing even combats and just kind of hitting them and putting fatigues on them and trying to stay ahead of them in the fatigue game. And so with Storm Breaks, Insignificant, and Furor, between those, if you can stay ahead of them in the fatigue game, I think you're doing pretty well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, I think it's a pretty good board. I think it does great for objective play with that vivacity, to ability, and being able to move around and stuff. Being foot sloggers is great for objectives. I guess I haven't really played against too many shooty armies. Have you been blasted off the board, John? Or
no, I've been fortunate not to have matchups against shooty armies. Really, it's been mainly folks who wanna fight it out.
Yeah, so even then, I'm not convinced. I mean, obviously, you'll take your licks in the shooting, but shooters have lower armor, so if you can just get into combat with them, it's going to be in your favor. And the Saxons don't have trouble doing that. So, yeah, I think they would be all right against a lot of armies. But yeah, this is a very fun board. So I will say this is a board that's used in Age of Vikings. You can use it with Germanic peoples, and you can take some Cav in that version, which is very effective. And you can take this board in Age of Crusades as Pagan Raiders, which is, I'm going to try that one at Fimbulwinter this year, John, I think.
Okay.
It's Heavy Weapon, Hearthguard, and Javelin Warriors. So I played one game. It's quite different, actually. Probably not as good, but they can also take Sailors as like a standard choice. So just kind of sword and board warriors that can reduce their armor by 1 to gain 4 attack dice whenever they want. So you could see some fun stuff going on there, but would play a little differently, I think, than the Age of Invasion Saxons. Yeah, I don't know. Any last thoughts here, John?
No, I think we've covered it.
Yeah, so definitely, if you haven't played the Saxons, I'd give them a shot. So model-wise, I think if you have Goths or Franks, you could easily use them as Saxons. And to be honest, I just use my Vikings as Saxons, and nobody said anything, so I think it's okay. I think it's okay to do that.
Yeah, they're very much just hairy dudes with metal bits, and sword and board. You're fine.
And board, yeah.
They're very Dark Ages.
Close enough. So yeah, I would definitely give them a shot. If you have any experience with those Saxons or the other variants, please comment below. I'd love to hear if we got it wrong on any of these. Shield and Sayax is your bread and butter. I'd love to know that. Or Death is Nothing is key. Yeah, I would like to hear some good stories about Death is Nothing. If you have them, about what you killed, I think that could be fun. Otherwise, we're going to thank all those juicy patrons out there: Terry, Patrick, Sean, Mitchell, Kevin, and Scott. We wouldn't be doing these extra videos without you guys, so thank you. But otherwise, that is going to be it for this one. Thanks, John, once again for agreeing to come on here. And
you're welcome. Always a pleasure.
To seeing you at Saga Storm pretty darn soon.
Very soon. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, folks. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye. Saga! If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.